curtains opened, saw literally a dead body in a coffin, looked a bit closer, it was me, my dead body.
When people don't arch on a bench press, they literally don't know how to bench press.
I think using kids as an excuse not to look after yourself, I think is mental abuse.
Arching in the bench press isn't cheating. Here's the main reason why you should be doing it.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Dan.
I'm George.
And today we're going to be talking about psychedelic experiences, arching in the bench press, and the last time that we cried. So, George, before we go into the podcast, dad life, I wanted to just
Get straight
into it. Yeah. How's, since becoming a dad, because I've seen your training, and I know we've both got clients who are dads who train, they get shit done, they don't use their kids as an excuse. So now that you're a dad, how have you found transitioning from dad to being able to keep a business running, to be able to manage staff, to be able to keep eating well, keep training?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. And it's 100% different. It's I think people can't prepare you enough for having a child. When you go from 0 to 1, everyone's like, oh, it's the hardest thing in the world, but it's the most rewarding thing in the world. It's literally oh, here's chaos, and it just explodes in your house. It interrupts absolutely everything. The way you communicate changes.
With your partner.
Yeah, communicate with your partner changes. Your household routine changes. You communicate via the baby rather than with adults. Is always about the needs of the baby, which is obviously a must, especially new parents. So it's literally just an explosion of chaos. But to answer your question about whether it affects training, I think initially it'll affect training, training outcomes and training quality and progress of training. But it doesn't just stop you from training unless you just say I'm not going to train anymore. So for the viewers, I got a son, Maxon. He's 5 months in a couple of days. 5 months in a few days. It's been a whirlwind. It's been amazing. It's been terrible as well. It's literally, I don't think people say how hard and bad it is. It's the best thing in the world, the worst thing in the world in one weird emotion. But he was born September 30th, and I competed in early November. So he was less than 2 months old, and I did a powerlifting competition, and I hit an all-time PB total. So it's it does create more erratic training. I had decent days, and then a shit ton of more poor days. But I still hit the same amount of training as I did because I put it into my program. I brush my teeth. I'm not gonna miss it. I'm lucky, and I understand I'm fortunate enough that I own this place. So my work is at a gym, so I can easily slot it in. But I was slotting it in the same times that normal people would slot in their training, unsociable hours, right at the end of the day or really early in the morning.
So you're making time for it.
So you're essentially making time.
Yeah,
you basically get this ball of chaos into the mix, and then you quickly got to reestablish a new routine. So I've got to try and manage a business, manage my clients, and manage my training,
and keep your wife happy.
Keep my wife happy, and interact and engage and spend some quality time with my son. So there's these plates that you got to spin. But as soon as you sort of you can't really systemize it because it is that much chaos. But as soon as you have an idea of how you can go about with ticking all of those boxes, then you can start putting in the work, and it doesn't sort of change things so much so that you just can't do anything anymore. And I feel people sort of get they experience the difficulty, and it is hard, and you are tired, and you're going into training. I remember going into one of my squat sessions, and I was I got to squat 320 kilos. I either squat 320 kilos or I could literally fall asleep. I was that tired. And you just got to be able to be okay, I've said I'm going to train, so I'm going to train. The goal is 320. I'll just build up to what I can do physically that day, take what's there. As long as I put in the effort, then it just keeps me on track until things start to normalize, and until things start to become a routine again. And then you can put it in a more fixed way. But when you first have a newborn, it is just sort of put in chaotically until it becomes more organized, and then you just go from there. But it's definitely challenging, but it's not impossible.
Yeah, and I think just reassessing that routine. And I personally think, and this might sound a bit extreme, but I think it's a massive cop-out when parents have a kid and all of a sudden their life stops and everything comes about the kid. And it's how can you be and turn up and be your best if all you're doing is putting all of your energy into that kid? You're having no downtime to yourself. You're always mentally on, because when you were the kid, you cannot switch off.
Yeah.
even worse when they start bloody walking, because they're fucking smashing their heads into everything. So you
Yeah.
have to be on guard. I just think you cannot, and if you're letting yourself go and then you've got less energy and you're taking all of your hobbies away, all of the fun things that you're doing, and then all of a sudden you stop that to look after this thing, it's like you can't, I personally don't think that you can be your best turning up to that kid. And also I think back to my childhood when kids are like sponges, as we know.
Mhm.
They literally listen and observe and pick up on everything that you do. And I think that I've seen Maxon down here in the gym. Like he's being exposed to what looking after your body is like. Now there's going to be differences. There's going to be anomalies to this, like single parents. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking people who are in relationships where there's two partners here. And I personally think that it's like, yeah, the kids will pick up on stuff. So if you're just stopping training, you're not looking after yourself, and if you're not being or doing things that you enjoy, and then they pick up on your energy, it's not good. I really don't think it's good. And I go back to when I was a childhood, like my dad would always say, like, "Oh, you look small on the rugby pitch," and I was really small for my age, and then he'd be like, I started getting acne, and he was like, "Oh, you're really ugly." Like,
Oh my god!
yeah, and I like
Brutal.
smashed my confidence. Like
Yeah.
he wasn't. My dad was amazing. Like,
Yeah.
he was like
Wasn't malicious.
No, not at all. But he just didn't understand. Like there was no internet back then. There was no
Yeah.
podcasts. There was
Yeah.
no YouTube videos. But the point I'm trying to get across is kids pick up on these things, and you can mold your kid into what you believe that they should be doing. I just
100%.
think like when a kid doesn't see their parents working out, or they stop everything altogether, it's not good for the parent or the kid.
Yeah, that's it. And like to come back to your point with how people just completely fixate on their children, you can't give the best version of yourself unless you're looking after yourself. So you have to be able to have like selfish time so you can focus on yourself. So then you can do what you need to do to be the best version of yourself, and then you're going to give the kid that. That kid's going to experience you,
It's true.
like the best version of you. You know?
It's fact.
Yeah.
It's fact. And again, I just want to go back to this point as well. If someone's looking at this and they're going, "Oh, easy for you to say, Dan, you haven't got a kid yet." It's like, no, take me out of it. I work with men who have got kids. I've got a client called Pete. He's running 2 businesses. He's got two kids, 2 and 3, or 1 and 3, I think. He's like just finished the muscle building phase. He's now starting to cut. He plays golf at quite a decent level. And he's got these big challenges coming up. And it's like, you can do these things. You put limitations on yourself, and then you could also you can add those limitations onto your kid, like my dad did with me unintentionally, with the negative self-talk and I see it happening with we look back at 90s culture, when it was all about looking thin, looking skinny, and it's like that. When our parents then lived through that and they passed that on to us, we've had to almost like unchange our attitude and behavior to what a body should look like. There's no right or wrong with how a body should look like. And we're picking up that mess now with all this stuff on how someone should look and the perfect body image and things like that. So it's fucking weird, isn't it?
It is.
It's really weird.
Wow.
Do you know what happened Monday? It was 3 years since my psilocybin retreat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think we ever spoke about that in depth.
Not
before.
in depth, no.
No. So yeah, it was 3 years.
So tell me the main reason why you went. What was the objective when you went? And tell everyone like what it actually is.
Yeah, sure. We'll keep, because there's so much to unpack here, so I'll keep it to the main focus points, because I know we've got to go into the podcast in a bit. But 3 years ago, I went on a psilocybin retreat in Utrecht in the Netherlands. Legal. It's legal over there. So psilocybin is the active ingredient in magic mushrooms, for anyone who doesn't know. And I wouldn't say I was going through a bit of a crisis, but I wanted answers in life. And there was things that, I guess wanted answers to it. I couldn't quite compartmentalize it. And it was almost like having 10 years of therapy in about 4 hours. The journey lasted about 4 hours. And it just uncovered some questions in my life that I couldn't get answers to or couldn't quite figure out. And I got the answers to all of them, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But it's quite scary. I think one we can obviously talk about it in more detail if anyone wants to in later episodes. So let us know if you want us to go into this in more detail in the comments. But there was a moment when it was at the start of the trip. So they put this playlist on, and in the playlist, all classical music. So as you can imagine, it can be quite dark, it can be quite happy, it can be quite sad, it can be quite kind of
Yeah,
playful,
moves
around massively, yeah, and you become the music. So we took what they call a hero's dose. So a hero's dose is a lot of shrooms. So you have to take a certain amount, and you have what they call like an ego death, which is a dissolution of your ego, basically. So you go down to bare bones of, like we discussed in that last episode,
Yeah.
like what is that thing that lives behind us, that
Yeah.
that consciousness, like what is it? And it strips it down to that, basically. So I think I was on the cusp of having that, but essentially what happened was I was going through the trip. We were about 5 minutes in, and I was closing my eyes because you lay there with around 20 other people around us and guides, and these flashes of colors were coming into my eyes, like red bleeding into purple, bleeding into blue. I was like, okay, something's definitely happening now. So I kind of opened my eyes. I looked around the room, and everyone's faces started to change a little bit. It was going like everyone just looked like much prettier, much more beautiful, and a lot more tanned. I was like, okay, I'm definitely starting to trip now. So I closed my eyes, laid back, and I was in like a scene of the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Wow.
And everything was just beautiful. I've got a fear of snakes, and there was these snakes just come into my face, but I was not scared at all. I was in complete peace. And I've got over my fear of snakes now as well, which is mad. I saw one about 3 or 4 weeks after the trip. There was an adder on my walk, and I just wasn't scared of it at all. It was mad. So that was happening. And then all of a sudden the music changed. Now I didn't realize at the time that the music changed, because you're kind of like, you know what's going on, but you're not quite sure what's going on. You're like, what is real life? What is this trip kind of thing? And all of a sudden the music changed, and it went to like a dark, like dong. It sounded like funeral bells, basically, like a song you'd play in a funeral. And what happened was I was like, it was almost like I was observing something. And you know Looney Tunes? Have you ever seen Looney Tunes? You know when the red curtains open?
Yeah.
So the red curtains opened, and I was looking at this. It was almost like a Looney Tunes character, a cartoon. And I was looking, and there was this group of people facing that way, so away from me, and I was looking out from this way, and there was a coffin, and inside the coffin there was a body. I was like, what's going on here? So I looked a little bit closer, and I was like, oh my god, like it's me, and it was my family all surrounding me, celebrate, like mourning my death. Everyone was crying, and I was like, oh my god, like I'm dead, like I've literally died. And in that moment, I literally got this realization that is, even in your darkest moments, you're loved, and nothing matters, because in the end you're going to die. And it was like the most freeing experience of my life. It was like, this is going to happen to you. Like, you're going to die. Like, stop fucking worrying about stuff.
Yeah.
Stop fucking overthinking. Stop like, yeah, just stop worrying about things, basically.
And did that happen like on reflection? So once you finished the trip and you like spoke about like what you saw and what you experienced, and then you thought like, what does that mean? And then you unpacked it? Or was it like an immediate realization?
Really? Straight away, immediate realization that is, oh my God, even in your darkest moment, you love. And I was bawling my eyes out when this was going on. Like, just lying down, tears coming down my face. And yeah, from that moment, I was just like, fuck, it's going to happen one day, you know? I don't think people talk about death enough. I think it's quite like taboo. I almost thought the other day, I was like, wouldn't it be cool? Because I've noticed, I don't know if you've ever been to a funeral. I've been to a few, but everyone talks about like how amazing the person was at the funeral, right? And it pisses me off, because I'm like, why don't we tell these people when everyone's alive?
Yeah.
And I've always thought, wouldn't it be cool to like do a made-up funeral where you're like, it's like a made-up funeral, and like everyone's there and everyone says their speeches and stuff like they would, but you get to hear what people think about you.
That's like a wedding though, right? I felt like I had that at my wedding.
Oh, did you? Okay, that's interesting, because I'm not married yet.
Yeah,
so I didn't.
Yeah,
that's interesting. That I've never thought about that.
Yeah, because when I got married, yeah, you were there, obviously.
Yeah.
My stepdad went around with a mic, and it was he asked some questions, and there were people unpacking like why they're here, what they like, sort of what they are to me, and what I am to them, basically. And then obviously Brad, my best mate, his speech then. I feel like that was enough. I wouldn't want any more than that. Otherwise, it would tickle my ego too much. Tickle my ego too much.
Yeah, but I've always thought that. But yeah, straight away. And then we unpacked it then the day after. Well, a few hours after, because everyone had come around and we were just all unpacking it.
Would you go again? Do you feel like there's benefit if you went again?
100%. I'd like to do ayahuasca next. Yeah. I'd like to go to like Peru and do it properly. My client did it and said it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like 8 hours of just in the zone.
Yeah.
Just intense. Would you ever do it?
I don't think I'd rule it out.
I think you would honestly fucking love it, Jord, because you enjoy going to therapy, don't you?
Yeah,
I think you would really, really enjoy it, and to get a lot out of it as well.
Yeah, I think I would. Yeah, I wouldn't rule it out. It would be I wouldn't really like plan it like you guys did. Like like look into it, book it, have a weekend or a few days to go over to do it. But if it was like an opportunity rose and it was something I could do that was sort of crossing paths, I wouldn't object. But I don't know, maybe like when I mean, I don't know, maybe when Maxon's a little bit older and I feel like I'm at a crossroads, maybe then it'll be the time to do it. Maybe it's time and place sort of thing.
I was just going to say, I think you'll always know if you need to do it. I think we don't listen to our intuition enough. Like, I think there's something inside us that tells us, like, can guide us.
Yeah.
I genuinely, because do you talk to yourself?
Yeah.
Do you have thoughts in your head?
I play out conversations.
Yeah.
So if I'm gonna like have a conversation with someone,
Yeah.
I'll have the conversation, and then I'll create different scenarios based on their answers. So I'll give different responses if they respond positively, negatively, neutrally, and I'll just give
practicing
basically.
the
Yeah,
conversation.
pretty
Yeah,
much. And I do it out loud. And Saf's like, "Who are you talking to?" I'm like, "What are you on about?" I was like, "I'm not talking."
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you ever do it when you're training? Like if you're like, come on, look, I'm fucking train now. Come on.
Yeah, like only at myself sometimes.
Yeah.
Not often, but yeah.
Or if you
Sometimes
need to get
sometimes just like saying things out loud, it just like it hits. And it's also like with I just did a coach development console call, and it was like basically giving an overview of the coach development system that we offer here. And
is that for coaches then?
Yeah, coaches or aspiring coaches. It basically gives the people our system, our coaching system, and we teach it. It's a 6-month-long course, and we go through the everything that we do here at Zero that gives us the results that we get.
Shameless plug. Anyone looking to improve their coaching skills, guys?
Get in touch. Zero Coach Development course intake last week of March. We commenced in. But it was crazy because like he asked some questions about the course, like about like the principle stuff. About movement and how we see things as like we're all the same animal doing the same thing, and then these biomechanical rules that apply to everyone. And I use this analogy of like the shoulder injury, right? It's just like you have a shoulder, I have a shoulder. If you fucked your shoulder, you wouldn't go to a physio, get a CT scan, X-ray, MRI, get a perfectly model made of your shoulder, wait for it to come back in and be like, hey Dan, this is your modeled shoulder. Here's where you've hurt it. This is going to be how we're going to fix it. They just pull up a human shoulder and be like, you have a shoulder, this is a shoulder, this is where you've hurt, this is how we fix it. So it's like, that's the biomechanical similarity, you know? And I was explaining it to him, and then he asked some questions about it. And as I explained it more, like I understood it more. And I've delivered this course like 6 or 7 times now to people. And when you recall something out loud, or you get challenged on something, or just explain something, you understand it more and more and more. And I just did it there and then. And I was just like, I could recall it. And now I feel like I know even more about it, or it sparks some thought about it. So I'm like, I'm going to record a video. And that's why I went and did it, recorded those videos on it.
And now I know it. And I know about, and now I'm going to share another analogy that will really relate to other people. So whenever I get guys come to me like, I can't lose fat, I can't lose muscle, I think I'm genetically inept. I'm like, bro, like imagine you had 10 flowers, right? And these flowers are getting photosynthesis, they're getting water, the ground is perfect conditions to grow. Out of those 10 flowers, 10 of them are going to grow. There's not going to be one that's going, oh, I'm inept, so I'm not going to be able to grow. It's like, no, going back to what you said then about the shoulders, all human beings are exactly the same.
Yeah.
There will be principles and ways of getting the end outcome that you want. You just haven't found that yet. You're following shit programs, you're following shit diets. Do the right thing, and you will get to where you want to be. 100%. That's what's so powerful about training. I think that's why so many younger people are now getting into training as well, is because they feel like they've got control over something. Like with their career, like making money now is hard, right? I think it's harder than than it ever has been. But when with the gym, if you're doing the right thing, like you can do the right things in your job. You can be working really hard. You can be working overtime, but someone else can have the job promotion that you went for, right? Whereas with the gym, if you're doing the work and you're doing the right things, you are going to see growth. You're going to see your shoulders get bigger, your arms get bigger. You're going to see your abs because you're losing fat. It's fact.
Yeah.
It's like, just put the work in, do the right things. And it goes back to that shoulder thing. Like we are all literally the same.
Yeah. Same animal doing the same thing. It's like when people say to me, like, I don't respond to sets of 8. It's just like, you don't get to choose what you respond to. The reason you don't respond to it is because you're not conditioned to do it, because you don't do it. You know, and then they're like, oh, I've hit a plateau. But I was just like, yeah, it's because you're in the same phase all the time. You can't progressively overload when you're in the same cycle. So it's just like, you don't decide what you adapt to. You're basically saying what you like to do. But unfortunately, your body doesn't care what you like to do. We're going to do what's best for you. Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it? Limiting beliefs are just
100%.
and we've all got limiting beliefs. I'm not saying that we haven't.
Yep.
We have, but I think once you've been in the game for long enough, like we have, we've been in this game for 15 years. It's like you become so confident with what you're doing. It's like you don't have limiting beliefs. Like I can start a cut, I can start a muscle building phase, I can start a strength phase, and I know if I do the right things, I'm going to build muscle. There's not an ounce of limiting beliefs. But in other areas of my life, there's a lot of limiting beliefs because I've never done it before or been able to achieve the outcome that I want. Going back to the training and the principle stuff then, you wanted to we said that we were going to discuss the arching and the bench press because there's a lot of controversy around this, right? You'll see someone putting up there's this fucking French dude that pops up on my Instagram from every now and again. You've probably seen him. He's like 72 kg or whatever, benching like 200k. Do you know his name? Like,
Panna.
That's
yeah,
it.
it's like 180 bench at like 72, I think. Yeah,
I was like, bro, you're mental. And sometimes I go to the comments because I'm like, oh, what are people saying? It's like cheating, arching. And I'm like, oh, you fucking haven't got a clue, mate.
I know. Cheating what? Like cheating the movement that is in their sport is like mental, isn't it?
It's sick.
It is mental. I understand, like, you know, the jarring aesthetic of it when people have huge arches, you know, because you look at it and you're like, the fuck is that? Because it is quite jarring.
Yeah.
But the reality is the reason why. Let's go into the reasons why like people arch, right? So first we need to understand the bench press. Where does the power come from? Comes from the pecs primarily, a little bit of triceps, right? So in order for us to access the power here, we need this system to be fixed. We need the shoulder to be fixed. Pecs job, lever the arm across the body. That assumes this point is fixed, you know?
So when you say fixed, what do you mean by shoulder being fixed?
So when we say fixed, that's where like the shoulders back and down thing comes from. Okay. So when you hear people bench press, they pull their shoulders back and down. They're essentially trying to fix the shoulder in a position so that the pec can act on the shoulder to do its job, to move this weight that's on their chest, right? So the shoulder has so many movement options, you know. So if we can pull our shoulders back and down and fix it into a position and not allow the shoulders or the scaps to move, then that's going to give us a nice stable position so we can press the most weight from, right? So when you pull your shoulders back, it's called scap retraction, and then you pull them down, scap depression. So pulling your shoulders back behind your shoulders and down towards your waist. Immediately you get a little bit of an arch. Those movements coupled with thoracic extension, it's a fancy way of just arching your upper back essentially. So the arch in the upper back is a byproduct of fixing the shoulders into position, right? So when people do that, they get more opportunity to press more weight from their chest, so the movement itself is stronger. So the arch is not an intention, it's a byproduct of position to put them in a better position to press the weight off their chest. Now, powerlifting is not about, you know, range of motion. You know, it's not about like, oh, we need the bar to do this or that. The IPF have put like the elbow depth rule on that, but let's not even put that into this conversation, right? Powerlifting as a whole is essentially move the weight from point A to point B under the conditions of the rules. So that is start with your arms locked out, lower it to the chest, to the bars, motionless on the chest, get a press command, press it back up to your arms straight, rack. That's all you need to do. And then there's like nuanced rules like feet flat or feet stable, bum on the bench, head on the bench, whatever the rule is, right? So with powerlifting being that as a main objective, we'll then try and intentionally arch harder. So we can fix our shoulders back and down naturally, but then you can squeeze even harder, lift the chest up and out, bias even more thoracic extension, create more of an arch to limit the amount of range that the shoulder goes through and that the bar goes through, therefore giving us more potential to press from, right?
So like if your chest's higher, the bar's got less to travel basically, so you can put more on the bar.
Exactly, exactly. And then in conjunction with that, what makes up an arch to get even higher, which is where you'll see the more extreme arches, is hip extension. So you'll see some people pull their feet way behind them, so their hips really, really extended. Some people have them less back, more forward, but a bit more out to the side, and you'll see like their knee generally lower than their hip, which is extending their hip, which is given even more thoracic extension as well. So the conjunction of thoracic extension and hip extension, that creates the arch, and then powerlifters will then try and exaggerate that position to make it even more secure to give them the most opportunity to press as much weight as they can.
Really interesting.
So then the question is like, should everyone do it?
Yeah, that was literally my next question. And how does that tie in then with strength versus muscle gain?
Yeah,
I think taking something from through a full range of motion.
Exactly. So should everyone do it? I think if everyone is choosing to do a barbell bench press, like a flat barbell bench press, yes, you should be pulling your shoulders back and down because it's going to reduce wear and tear on the shoulder. It's going to make it more stable. It's going to mean you can press more weight, create more volume, add more load, and it's going to be a safer, more progressive, consistent movement model for you to follow.
And I'll just add something really quickly into this. As soon as I learned retracting and depressing my shoulder blades years ago, when I first ever got a coach, instantly shoulder pain gone from any dumbbell pressing movement.
100%. And then you can there's the loads of little like tendinopathies that can come from it, like impingements in the front of the shoulder that come from just like poor technique. Whereas if you can learn how to do that, you will protect your shoulder and you will get more out of the movement and progress with the weight on the bar. So everyone should do it if they're going barbell bench press. They won't necessarily need to like force the arch as such. Like I'm a powerlifter. My powerlifting coaching is like my jam. So I tend to like teach it as if they are going to do powerlifting, because I'll always try and make my clients do powerlifting at some point. So all of my guys should do it. But in terms of like if hypertrophy is the goal, barbell bench press with an arch is probably not the best option for you when there's other things that you could use like dumbbells, machine presses, pec flies, stuff like that can actually take the pec through more range, create more mechanical tension, and give you more of an opportunity to like stress the muscle. Then that's probably going to be a better option for just pure aesthetic. But who doesn't want a fucking big barbell bench press, eh?
Every Monday, innit? Barbell International Chest Day.
Yeah.
Every Monday.
Do you bench on Mondays?
No.
Oh, no,
squats.
Oh, no, I do. I do bench on a Monday.
Oh, you're one of those.
I squat on a Saturday, bench on a Monday, change a program. I got a baby and it's really hard. So I'm going to change my schedule to accommodate.
Yeah, one of those. At least you're changing it and not just skipping the gym. Yeah. Oh, gosh. Really interesting. I haven't got anything to add to that because there's no.
How does like bench press fit in with your clients? How do like you get them to bench? Do you get them to barbell bench press? If like these skinny fat guys want to put on some muscle, how would you program their upper training and in particular the bench press?
As with every compound lift, like we've discussed in other podcasts, it's a case of, again, goes back to when most men start with me, they've really struggled to build muscle and to feel the muscle work in. So I think sometimes with compound lifts, it's just a little bit too complex for them at that time. But the goal is to always get them to squat, bench, and deadlift in the long term. So I will always just go like, look, let's just hammer the machines, let's hammer the dumbbells, let's get you up and running first, build a solid foundation, then we can move on to the bench press. But when I do then get them to bench press, I don't really focus on an arch, but I'll be like, look, retract and depress. I'll coach them through that. And then they're like, ooh, I'm not feeling this in my shoulders anymore. It's like, oh, well, you're doing it right. And we'd also do that on the dumbbells as well. And the machines, I'd say you can still do that on machines as well to make sure that you're protecting your shoulder. But that's essentially how I do it.
Yeah, nice, man.
Yeah. I've got a question for you that is something that I think is I don't know why, but I always think that when people see other men, so I know a lot of men watch this podcast, and I think that we've got a platform where we can almost like change, because we spoke earlier about you saying an analogy that has now stuck with me, and then I said an analogy that would relate to other people, and then all of a sudden someone watching this podcast might be an epiphany for them.
Yeah.
And then they can then pass that on to other people. And I think we've got quite a cool little platform because we're getting quite a lot of viewers watching this now. Pardon me. To almost like not make people, I think men have a tendency to not talk. Do you find that?
Yeah, for sure. Close
things
books.
in.
Yeah, 100%.
And even though I'm trying to work on that, because I remember when I first got with Soph, I wouldn't say how I felt at all. But she got that out of me. She was like, look, if you had a bad day at work, like just tell me, not a burden. And as soon as I started then talking about things that were on my mind, but I didn't feel like I could share with other people, I felt a lot better for it.
Yeah.
And I think that there is that stigma sometimes between men don't necessarily want to come across as being vulnerable, or they don't want to come across as being a burden on other people by sharing or offloading,
Yeah.
And I think that's what can sometimes make men feel like there's no one there to support them. It's almost like a vicious circle. Like they're not saying something, and then how can someone help you if you're not sharing how you feel? So I think we've got a platform here where we can talk about stuff that's quite deep and maybe challenges the status quo when it comes to like emotions and feelings, because we are both quite emotional people.
Yeah,
I think we are anyway.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
So a question that I had today was, when was the last time you cried, and why?
I can cry watching. So the last time I properly cried was when Maxim was born. That was
balling.
like, yeah, man, like it was moving. I could cry fucking thinking about it now.
Yeah, I can see you
So
welling
like,
up.
yeah, I know, mental. So when
Wow.
Saf gave birth and then he came out and then everything was like good, it was like so shocking to start. It's like adrenaline, and then you're like, oh, is she okay? Is he okay? And as soon as everyone's okay and it's fine, it's like the reality then is like that's your human that you've made that you've been waiting for months, like crazy. And then Saf had this playlist going, which was like really like nice music. And then once everything calmed down and everything would like sort of finish, the midwives were like, "Oh, we'll just leave you like just chill for a bit." Saf was eating toast, having a cup of tea, and then I had Maxon in my arms, sat on a chair. And I was just looking at him, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And then I was just like, "Blech," just
Wow.
gone, mental.
Oh my
So it was
God.
like, this is like my son, and he's like just content in my arms, and it's like not feeling like it, crazy. So that's the last time I was like really like crying. But then I cried like last week because I watched a video on Facebook about a dog being abandoned,
Oh.
and then being rescued, and then being cared for, and then having a new lease of life. And it was a staffy, and I got a staffy Kilo, and then I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. And then I cry watching that, and then I'm like, if I watch it, cry, show Saf, she cries, and then we're like, oh, it's really nice, and then just like turn it off and then move
Yeah.
on. So like the most insignificant, it's not insignificant, like that's significant, rescuing and giving a dog a new lease of life, but stuff like that can like trigger me super easy. Anything with animals, like Saf can send me a photo of Maxon now, and it can like make me go like this, but yeah, that's probably it. You?
Yeah, I think like for me it was a few days ago, because my nan, when I came back from my psychedelic retreat, which the anniversary was Monday. So yeah, I think it was Monday actually, because my nan passed away. As soon as I came home, my brother rung me up and he's like, "Oh, I need to tell you something. Oh, Mams has passed away," and she was battling with dementia or Alzheimer's for only a few months. Actually, it was really quick. She kind of just started losing her marbles a bit, and then 3 or 4 months went by, and then she passed away. So it was quite a quick ending. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but just thinking about her, and I've got her little those when people pass away and when you're in a funeral and they give you those leaflets of like the person's name, when their date of birth, when they were born, when they passed away. And I've got that in my bedroom, and I just looked at it and I just started crying and got really upset.
Yeah.
Because she was an amazing woman. I know everyone says that about their nan, but yeah, she was class. And then before that, it was a song, and that was a few months ago. There was a song. Have you heard of Dean Lewis? How Do I Say Goodbye?
No.
It's quite a nice song, and it goes. So his dad basically. So he made the song. His dad passed away. His dad got diagnosed with cancer, and the song goes, "How do I say goodbye to someone who's been with me through my whole damn life? You gave me my name and the color of my eyes. I see the face, and I see mine," or something like that.
Yeah.
And everyone tells me that I look like my dad. Like, I've always had that through all of my life, which is quite offensive actually, because my dad's fucking ugly as fuck. I'm joking. But yeah, those lyrics just made me, because I was like, oh, he's gonna pass away one day. He's got this thing where he says, 62, I'm gonna die, because he had a dream. He was 62 and he's gonna die. So
how old is he now?
Like 58.
Oh,
so he's like, I haven't got much left now. But yeah, sometimes I was like, Dad, don't think that, because I think you can preempt like these things. I'm trying to get him not to
hate his 62nd birthday.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that was the other time that I passed away. That I cried. So, yeah. But yeah, I think that's
pretty much
podcast.
us, right?
Yeah, good. How long was that?
It's 45 minutes, hour.
Amazing.
That's
Thanks,
amazing.
guys. Thank you, guys. See you soon.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks for tuning in. See you in the next one.